Okay, so the last writing and language passage is the sky is the limit. Until the 1960s, buildings of more than 30 stories were something. So we don't know what this something is because we want to choose something that is the best introduction. The thick interior columns and walls necessary to fortify these buildings against forces such as powerful winds and earthquakes reduce the amount of rentable floor space. Moreover, so this is continuation discussing something that is bad. Taller buildings require additional concrete and steel to resist increased lateral forces and high cost, right? So we see this is all disadvantages of buildings in the past. So we have to choose something that is bad, which is C, inefficient to build. Okay, and for number 35, we know that taller buildings is our subject, so we need a verb here. Requiring is not a verb, right? C and D using the relative pronoun, that would be creating fragment. So we have to choose B. Required is our verb. So remember, whenever there is problem, it's going to be juxtaposed by solution or potential solution. And that is why in this case, it says to address these challenges, engineer and architect Fassler Rahman Khan developed novel forms of structural tubing. So we know that whenever we have a noun before and then a noun after, the second noun is in a positive, and we have to decide whether it is essential or not essential. Without the name, we wouldn't know which engineer or architect you're talking about. So it is essential. No punctuation. D. All right. And 37. So which sets up the main idea? Well, we are moving from something negative to something positive. He developed new forms of structural tubing, leading to a new era in urban architecture. And that is C. But if you're not sure about 37, of course, you can continue reading one more paragraph before you log down your answer. But just keep in mind that we're shifting from old to new, right? So, metropolitan population growth in the 1950s encouraged the construction of tall structures to house people and support growing businesses. Khan realized that if a building's exterior walls could be made to bear more weight and withstand lateral forces more effectively than they traditionally had, the result would be a taller, safer, and more cost-effective building, right? So that's going to be the solution. And he applied this idea to his experiment, which is this Brunswick building. Okay, so I'm going to skip to next sentence. With support at both the center and perimeter, comma. Now, what is this doing here? This is actually a dangling modifier question, because whenever we see comma and underline, we need to check. Do I have a phrase or a clause before the comma? Because if I have a phrase, which means I don't have subject verb, it is a modifier and it has to modify the subject after the comma. And in this case, we have a phrase. So we have a modifier. So our subject has to be the thing that has support at both the center and perimeter. And that is why the answer has to be A. This tube within a tube layout right? The layout has to be our subject because you can see B, subject is winds, C, subject is resistance, D, there cannot even be a subject, all right? So it is A, the layout has support. Okay, and number 39 effectively establishes the main topic of the paragraph. So I guess we have to read the paragraph first. Realizing the advantages of the tube structure, he developed the bundled tube system. Chicago's Willis Tower, designed by Kahn, blah, blah, blah. Instead of being a single rectangular tower, the building is composed of 9 square tubes of varying heights, resulting in a multi-level structure with 2 tallest tubes surrounded by progressively shorter ones. Okay, so let's do 40 first. 40 is a very long sentence, so let's cross out what we have to do. Instead of being a single rectangular tower, prepositional phrase, the building is composed, cross out prepositional phrase, of 9 square tubes, cross out of varying heights. So you can see that this is actually a complete sentence followed by a trailing phrase. So the best answer would be D, comma, resulting. All right. B would be wrong because this is not talking about at the same time. And C would be wrong because which and it, that is repetitive, right? You cannot use double pronouns in this case. Okay, and of course, A is wrong because and has to be used to join parallel structure. And in this case, it isn't. All right, so now we can see that this building is very impressive. So what would be establishing the main idea in number 39? Let's look at A, 39A. It was originally intended to be only 7 stories tall. No, original intention. This is not talking about how impressive it is. B, one of the most renowned landmarks to feature this system. True, it is the first building to use the bundled tube system. So let's leave B. C, how long it took and how much money it cost. Not relevant. D, iconic tower that many still refer to as what it is called, whether it's called the Sears Tower, the whatever tower, that is not relevant as well. And of course, you can see the good keyword or the indicator. This system is referring to the system from before. So whenever you are in doubt, always look for these indicators, this, that, these, those, the, such, plus noun, right? You have a high chance of getting it right. Okay, and number 41, which most effectively combines the sentences at the underlying portion. So the tubes are structurally sound on their own. However, all right, so we know that this is a contrasting relationship. So anything without contrast, because we want to keep the same relationship, would be wrong. So B is out, it is not contrast. C would be out because it's not contrast either. So we're comparing A and D and see which one is most concise. All right. So, however, those tubes get added stability from the bundle structure that connects the tubes in the lower 50 stories. Now, do you see how D is more redundant? Number one, because it is added, right? Passive voice unnecessarily. Number two, remember which the relative pronoun has to refer directly to the noun before, but is bundled is not even a noun. So this is a misplaced modifier. And that is why A, the one with the contrast and shortest answer, right? That is our answer to this combining sentence question. Okay, and 42, this is just vocabulary. Once buildings had demonstrated the effectiveness of tubular designs, engineers and architects were free to imagine even loftier or grander project. And so there were a lot of tall buildings, a rapid increase of tall buildings, and that would be proliferation. Okay, amplification is used to, talk about volume, sound. This is not inflation, which is used to talk about money, economy, right? Ever since COVID, there has been really serious inflation. An egg costs about like over $20 now. And dissemination is like spreading out of something, like dissemination of flyers or pollens. Okay, so 43. Now, structures, remember this is verb. So we want to start crossing out. Cross out prepositional phrase, such as the skyscraper Burj Khalifa. Completed, that is a participle. Remember, we don't want to confuse participle with verb. So completed in 2010 by engineering firm with which Khan worked. So your subject is actually plural structures. So A, B, C are out. They're singular. D, continue. And number 44, where do we put sentence 4? Okay, the fact that, hey, what is this record did not endure is a testament to the success of Khan's design. So we want to make sure it's placed after Khan's design, because if we go back to the previous paragraph, what is the record? It is 110 stories, and it was the tallest building for more than 2 decades. But then afterwards, people started building grander projects. So of course, sentence 4 should be placed before sentence 1 as the first sentence of this paragraph, because afterwards, the buildings surpassed the original record. Okay, and that is it for this passage.